Vans is one of those shoes you don't really have to do much. There's not much to change. If it's not broke, then why fix it?
The guys I looked up to, Jay Adams and Tony Alva, Shogo Kubo, all these guys, all they wore were Vans. And so for me, the shoe I had to get was Vans. And so in like 1978, Marina Del Rey Skate Park opened, and I just remember going to the skate park, getting the low tops at first, the regular deck shoe, before even the eras came out. It was like the blue bottom sole ones. And then I went and got the high top, the classic high tops, and that's when it really, like, it was the skateboarding shoe. It wasn't just a Van shoe, it was the skateboard shoe. And I think that, you know, pretty much the impression was that I'm a skateboarder now.
I do remember my first pair of Vans, actually. They were some skate highs, black canvas with a white side stripe, and they were hand-me-downs. They were from a friend of mine who wanted to sell them. They were still good, there were holes in the side, they had shoe go on them, and I bought them from him. And I think they were one size too big for me, so I wore 2 pairs of socks. I think those are my first Vans.
My oldest brother would wear these, I think the little Authentics. It was just too cool, you know, like I would love to see that, and then slowly just started to copy that. Like I need slip-on, so just like a smooth, like the most simple shoe. I was always down to be like, I wanted to skate my socks or barefoot if possible, you know? So I went with the straight down to the basics and the classics, like, oh, Vans, smallest thing, perfect, you know?
I think my first memory of Vans shoes was when I was a kid, obviously, you know, looking at all the old skateboard magazines and, you know, especially all the early mags that came out with all the guys like on small boards in the 70s, and they all had Vans on, which was kind of crazy, you know? Like, I mean, there was a lot of other shoes, obviously, you know, there were other brands out there, but I think Vans really kind of like made that their niche market as what they wanted to be about.
Stace Peralta was like one of the first guys I saw in the magazine, and I saw that he was wearing Vans, and you know, I would just study all the guys and see what they were wearing. And you know, as a kid growing up, you always kind of want to emulate, you know, your mentors, your peers, and the people you look up to as well. So some of those guys were wearing Vans, and I'm like, yeah, I got to get me a pair of Vans because I want to be a skateboarder. I want to look like a skateboarder. And you know, they also advertised this waffle sole that was really grippy for the shoes with the grip tape and stuff. So you know, I talked to some guys around the park and say, yeah, you got to get some Vans because they're the best skateboard shoe out there.
Here we are in 2015, and you look at skateboarding, like, we are still riding, you know, wood boards, fucking vulcanized shoes. What works is what works. Like, obviously we got way out there, you know, through the years, but what it came back to is this simplicity, and not much has really changed. It's crazy.
What happened in the early days is the Vans shoe started off in 1966. The classic, authentic, they called it Style 44, was maybe $4.49. So when Tony's era came around, maybe 8 years later, 74, 5, 6, shoes might have been $8. And Tony and Stacy and Jerry Valdez and Brad Bowman, all these guys would come into our stores up in Santa Monica in the Valley, and if they skated and wore out the left foot because that's where they were tearing up, you know, well, the tricks that they were doing at the time, they could come in and just buy a left foot, and it would cost them $4.
There was a store that sold Vans tennis shoes next to the junior high school that I went to. And occasionally the Van Dorens would go by there to check on things, and they would sell me like one shoe at a time. Because the boards were so narrow back then that we would wear out one shoe before the other. Because one was for steering and kind of controlling the board, and the other one was for pivoting and using it as a brake almost. So we would use the back foot a lot more than the front foot as far as wear and tear went on the shoe. So we would wear out, if you're a goofy foot, left. If you're a regular foot, right. We'd wear one shoe out at a time.
So Tony was the type of guy, you know, he'd have navy blue shoes on, and then all of a sudden, I think I'll take a left, give me a red. So he'd always have like a red shoe and a blue shoe.
Because it didn't matter what color it was, as long as it was the same style shoe that worked with the gum rubber sole. That's all that really mattered. So that's kind of how it started with me, just as a junior high, then high school, wearing Vans. and starting to basically make contact with the people that were actually making the shoes and let them know that we really would love it if Vans would make us a shoe, you know, something just for skateboarding.
Tony would come in, he talked to my dad. He said, you know, hey, to make him a little more comfortable, can we pad the collar here? And, you know, what he was suggesting is just trying to make a little bit more comfortable shoe.
We noticed that you needed a little bit more protection around your ankles, especially the bones, if your board was hitting you or anything. So I think that's what led from the deck shoe to the mid tops.
My dad had been making shoes for 20 years at another company, and at that point 10 years for Vans and stuff. So he was set in his ways, but at the same time, okay, no problem. We padded the collar, we put an outside heel counter, we used number 10 duck, which is the strongest canvas that you can use, back to 220 drill, so it was just a little bit beefier up. And then the off-the-wall heel label, which I, you know, have a little bit right here. This is what, it's like red rubber, and then you print on it, and we cut it out and come up with, you know, the little heel labels and stuff. So
they knew that they could make a shoe for skateboarding, and that they needed some sort of marketing, not only like a brand affiliation, but also like a slogan to go with the shoe. And I think that's where Off the Wall came from, was from that era.
We named the shoe in 1976 was the Vans Off the Wall. It was a skate shoe, because they were the ones that told us, this is what we want to have. The Off the Wall, that came from coming out of pools, off the wall. Those guys suggested that.
We kind of made a family connection, you know what I mean? From our street family, which was the Z-Boys, to the Van Doren family. And we actually started to communicate with them with design theory, but also with the plan to market the product.
My dad was just into making, you know, good shoes for a long time. They adopted us and said, hey, we like the shoes, and eventually they suggested to do things with the shoes of style 36, which had more leather on it. Then 37 was a mid-top, and then 38 was a skate high. And that's how all those evolved in the 70s, 76 to like 79.
The skate highs, those were so functional and so good compared to the low tops. As soon as we started skating pools and stuff, everybody just wanted to wear skate highs. That's all they wanted, was the skate highs, you know? That's where it evolved to, but it organically evolved there. We didn't force feed the concept. It was like it organically evolved to the point where skate highs and mid tops were the best shoes, and still are the best shoes for skateboarding.
We listened all the time, and it just evolved. And what happens, I tell people the story, is that's why I'm so loyal to, you know, skateboarding.
Yeah, we love skateboarding. Right? I tell you, can't burn passion out. That's for sure.